Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Welcome to tonight's live stream. And tonight we're going to talk about a very interesting IEM. We will let a few people hop on, and then we will start the review of the Kiwi Ears Septet. Hopefully everybody can hear me and everything's good to go. It looks good on my end, so we will hopefully be distraction free, problem free. We've had some issues the last couple of live streams. All right, so we've got some people hopping on. Let's go ahead and get this started. Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the Kiwi Ears Septet, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank Kiwi Ears for sending over the Septet for review. Greatly appreciate it. Kiwi Ears, you rock. All right, so the Kiwi Ears Septet, this will set you back $270 from your bank account. It is a 7-driver quadbrid. It has a 10mm dynamic driver, 4 balanced armatures, 1 microplanar, and 1 PZT driver. It has a 5-way crossover and 3 tuning tubes, 15 ohms of impedance, 95 decibels of sensitivity, and a frequency response range of 8 hertz to 30 kilohertz. So the Septet from Kiwi Ears comes in a pretty standard Kiwi Ears box. If you've gotten any other Kiwi Ears products, this is going to look very, very familiar. You get a picture on the front, a little bit of branding, some information on the sides, and when you take off the sleeve, you have a black box with their logo. And then taking that off, you have a piece of cardboard foam and then an area for a carrying case. And that's it. For $270, I would have thought that Kiwi Ears would have maybe jumped up the unboxing experience a little bit, but they kept it very simple, which I'm okay with. It just would have been nice to see something a little nicer. All right, carrying case, again, very similar to Kiwi Ears of past. Black with logo. Hard shell, nice and small. It's going to fit in a pocket bag. It's going to protect the Septet. Opening it up, and as you can see, it crams everything in nicely. Got your little carrying pocket here and a little bed for the IEM. It's going to do a good job. All right, then you get very limited accessories. You get your swappable termination. So it includes 3.5 and 4.4. And then you get 2 different types of silicone tips. They're all black. These are pretty standard, just like all the other Kiwi Ears tips. So if you're any familiar with Kiwi Ears, you already know what they look like. You get your little bit more shallow wide bore tip, and then you get the more olive grape shape, narrower bore. Nothing too spectacular. Let's see if we can get these back in the bag without spilling them all over the place. Probably not going to happen, but you never know. Careful, 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 careful. Hey, we made it. All right. So, the Septet. It has a unique look to it. You have open back. So yes, this is a open back IEM. It's got this little copper type of look underneath for the driver. And then you have your open back. Smooth back. They are a bit on the thick side. No wings or anything. Decent angle to the nozzle and about a medium length, I would say. And you're probably noticing I have foam tips. We'll talk about that here in a moment. All right, so overall the build's nice. I like the metal faceplate and then the hard resin type of body. They're a little bit on the heavy side, not too big. Overall, though, I did find that they were pretty comfortable. I found that they snugged into ears, even with that somewhat shorter of a nozzle and flat back. These didn't bother me. As long as I use foam tips, kind of help snug them in. I found that using silicone tips, they kind of slipped around just a little bit, and I kind of had to every now and then adjust them, but they weren't too bad. So as you can see, they're not super huge. I can wear them for a few hours at a time without any discomfort, just kind of an annoyance having to adjust them. Cable connects with 2-pin. Ear hooks are okay. I do wish that they had just a little bit more tension, but overall they're pretty good. It's a nice cable, nice and lightweight, pretty well controlled. Has a cinch that kind of stays in place, but over time it's just going to kind of push down. Nice and small split. And then you have a swappable termination that is quite large. So you just pull it off. I like terminations that are a little bit more locked in place or screwed on. This one you just kind of, you know, fit it in and slide it on. And I did find that if you're pulling them out of a device, if you don't hold right close to the plug, you will separate it. So make sure if you're putting it into your source, you're grabbing on as close as you can to the plug and pulling instead of holding back a little bit, because if you pull back, it's going to separate real easy. Just a little bit of a frustration on my part. I wish it was either screwed on if it's going to be this long or have some sort of locking mechanism, because it does pull apart rather easily. But you get 4.4, 3.5. I pretty much stuck with 4.4. And the reason for that is I found that with its 15 ohms and 95 decibels of sensitivity, that it's not the easiest device to drive. I found that it needs a little bit of power. And so since some of the portable devices had 4.4 and you get a little bit more power with the 4.4 balance, I just used it that way. If you use the 3.5 with a powerful source, obviously you don't need to use the 4.4. But if your device has balanced output and a little bit more power, I would use it. These are not the easiest to drive. All right, so getting back to the cable itself, it is nicely built, pretty well controlled. It doesn't really tangle. It does twist up just a little bit when you first take them out and unwind them. But once it's in use, it's pretty well controlled. I like this cable, nice and lightweight, good length, and looks nice. I like this kind of brownish coppery color. Kind of matches the design of the faceplate. And so I like the coordination that Kiwi Ears did here with this product. Comfort-wise, they're good. As mentioned, you can wear them for a couple of hours. Noise isolation, not so good. Open back, they barely block anything out. You're going to easily be able to carry on conversations with other people. People are going to hear what you're listening to, especially if you listen a little bit louder. I do find that they're not the best at noise isolation. They're not terrible, but they're if you are needing noise isolation, don't use a Septet. Use something else. But if you don't mind a little bit of noise from the outside, go ahead, use the Septet. They're okay for that. Using foam tips does block things a little bit more, but it still can hear things out and about. So just be aware of that. All right, getting back to source pairing. So source pairing is, how do you put it? So they're picky because, as mentioned, they have that 95 ohms of sensitivity. And so you kind of, or not ohms, 95 dB of sensitivity, and they're a little bit hard to drive at 15 ohm. So something with a little bit of power. You don't need something with a ton of power, but anything like dongle wise that has a balanced output, I would definitely use them balanced, unless the 3.5 is just as powerful as balanced. But I found that using them with less powered stuff like a periodic audio rhodium, they kind of were a little bit muddled and weren't really bringing out the potential of the Septet. Adding them into something with a little bit more power, Fosse Audio DS2, Hibby FC4, things like that have a little bit more, maybe a FIO, KA11 or whatever it's called. Those would be more optimal. So a little bit more power definitely helps the Septet. Another thing to keep in mind, these are slightly on the warmer side. And so having something with a more warm presentation is going to bog them down. So keep the warmth to a minimum, and these will sound more airy and more approachable. but you don't want to go full on analytical. They do have a tendency to be elevated in the upper mids and lower treble regions, and they have a penchant to be sibilant and hot in that area. So using something that is more of an analytical, clinical, colder device also could be a detriment as well. So kind of stay away for things that are overly warm and things that are more clinical, cold, analytical sounding. And you should find a happy medium with the septet. I found that things that were more of a neutral, natural presentation sounded the best, offering a good balance of warmth, but yet also enough to control that top end. All right, so how do the Kiwi Ears Septet sound? I found that the Kiwi Ears Septet has a bass that is, how do I put it, a bit lacking when it comes to impact and texture. Now, that's not to say it doesn't have bass impact or doesn't have bass texture. It just doesn't have enough. And I don't find myself saying this very often about gear, but I found that the Septet, I was wanting more. I was wanting a little bit more impact, a little bit more texture, and just a little bit more of a gumption in the bass. It just kind of sounds like a bass that's just kind of going, ho hum, I'm here, I'm going to do my thing and leave. It doesn't really sound like it's an interested bass to be presenting. It's just kind of, I'm just doing my job, and I really don't want to put forth any effort. The bass just is a little lacking. I wish that there was more of a to it, and it's just not very engaging. There's decent details and resolution and a nice tone and timbre. It just doesn't have the gumption. It just doesn't have that get up and go. You don't have a lot of thump. There's not a lot of power and authority in the bass. It just is kind of there. Going into the mids are the opposite. The mids are forward, they're energetic, they're vivid, and they are alive. And you can really get a sense of the mids. The mids have the spotlight. And the problem with the mids is it sounds good until you get into the upper mids, and that's where the real rise comes. When you start going 4K and higher, there's an elevation, and from 6K to about 9K, there's quite a rise, and it gets too much. So for about the area that is often referred to as the now the name is slipping, but the presence region, there we go. The presence region, 6K to 9K, somewhere in that range. It's just a little too much, and it's overly emphasized, and at times it can be domineering, and it's prone to sibilance and hotness. And I found that the upper mid range just kind of takes dominance at times, and it can just be fatiguing. And it throws the timbre off, and it throws the naturalism off in instruments. The rest of the mids is good. There's nice body, nice note weight, and a little bit of warmth. But when you get into those upper ranges of the mid range, it becomes a little bit too forward, too emphasized, and it dominates the sound, and it goes into like shoutiness, and there's sibilance. And then the lower treble carries on with being hot and being aggressive, and then the rest of the treble is nicely controlled. It just kind of rolls off, and you get this nice presentation that's well controlled. But it's that 6K to 9K region that's just a little bit too peppy, and it's fatiguing. And I find that the treble has a little bit too much zippity-doo-dah, and so those instruments that reside in those upper mids and lower treble regions, brass, woodwinds, strings, and some percussion stuff, just kind of sounds artificial, and it doesn't have that naturalism, and it's just a little too forced upon. Stage of the septet is nice, big and wide. It has a nice openness to it. Of course it should. It's an open back IEM. And I find that It has nice width, does a really good job of showing you differences in venues, small, medium, large, grand. It really does sound big, and it does well with gaming. I found that the spaciousness of the stage is very good, along with the layering. You can really look into a stage, and it keeps things separated very nicely. But it's also a little bit fake sounding. It's a little too open. And I find that sometimes when you have these big, huge, wide stages, that things just sound a little bit artificially placed, a little artificially boosted and enhanced to give it more air, more space. It doesn't quite sound as natural. Now it's big and it's big wow factor, and I really enjoy it, especially for gaming. But sometimes with music, it can sound a little bit like you're trying to watch a movie on a big, huge screen and you're too close to it. And so your head's going like this. It can be a little bit trying to track everything, but it does a good job moving things around and you can pinpoint things and follow them. But when that stage gets massively huge, it can get a little bit artificial sounding. Another thing about the soundstage is it has a very strong center image, and this isn't really a detriment to the septet. This is actually a positive. So if you have something where somebody is talking and there's a bunch of other things going on, but that person is the focal point of the conversation, like in a movie or in a game, or it's a singer and they're the focal point, but there's also background singers and music going on, it puts a spotlight on it and you can understand them. It does a really good job. Also, if you have instruments that are solos or vocalists that are solos, it really presents things in the middle and puts a spotlight on it without being so bright that they're the only thing you hear, but it kind of just enhances it a little bit. I like that aspect of the septet. I think it does a good job. Detail retrieval and resolution is also really good. I wouldn't say it's top notch for its price point, but it's definitely average for its price point. You're not going to miss anything, but you're not really going to be exploring new things either. Resolution wise, it's pretty good, especially in the bass and in the lower mids, but in that 6 to 9K region, it can be a little bit grainy and harsh. And it just doesn't have quite as refinement because it's being forced. It's being pushed a little too much, and so it becomes a little bit artificial sounding, and it's not quite as natural, especially in that 6K to 9K region. And then tone and timbre. I wouldn't say this is the most natural sounding IEM. Now, it's not bad, but it's also not accurate. The bass is pretty accurate. I had no issues really with tone and timbre with the bass. I also didn't have any issues with the lower mid range. But once things started to elevate in the mids, after about 4K and going into the treble, things started to be pushed too much and it kind of thinned out and it just kind of made them sound a little artificial and a little bit kind of. It just had this little metallic twinge to it and it didn't sound as natural and accurate. So I wouldn't say it's an unnatural sound, but I also wouldn't say it's the most natural sounding. Overall, I don't mind the septet. It does some unique things. Soundstage especially, I really do enjoy. And I find that the way that it kind of presents mids and puts the spotlight on them, I enjoy that also. I don't enjoy the details and resolution just aren't quite as refined. And that bass just doesn't have that body and the impact that I've kind of gotten used to with Kiwi Ears. It just kind of misses it. How does it compare to another IEM that's similar in price, also made by Kiwi Ears? Now, I don't have anything that has the same configuration, and I don't have any other open backs currently in-house, so I'm going to review it to and compare it to the Kiwi Ears Astral. Now, the Kiwi Ears Astral, I understand, is not the same configuration, and it's closed back, but they're similar in price point. And honestly, I would take the Astral. The Astral for me is more refined, defined, and focused, is more neutral sounding, and has a more accurate tone and timbre, also is better detailed and resolving, and is more controlled in those upper mids and lower treble regions, and has more extension in the treble, isn't quite as laid back in the upper treble region, and the bass has more impact, punch, and slam, and texture. and reaches deeper. I find that the Astral is just a more complete sound and a better presented IEM, and it's just a more neutral, natural presentation. Does it do all the same things as a septet? No. Soundstage is slightly better on the septet, a little bit more airy and all that kind of stuff. But to me, what really matters is the tonality and being more neutral and natural and accurate and more detailed and resolving. And that's why I would go with the Astral. But if you're looking for a fun, open, warmish, very energetic, somewhat bright sound, the Septet isn't bad. And it's definitely something unique. And it is different than everything else that Kiwi Ears has put out. So I recommend it for being unique. I don't recommend it necessarily for its performance and its presentation. All right, let's get to some questions, comments, concerns, thoughts about the Septet or anything else that is on your mind. And let's talk about it. What happened to my screen while I was gone? Hang on a second. My chat disappeared. All right, let's see here. Obviously, I'm still going live on that screen. It's just my laptop decided, oh, you don't need to see the chat anymore. So, all right. Thank you for everybody showing up. I do greatly appreciate it. And if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns about the Septet, about the Astral, or about anything else, let's talk about it. We got some time this evening, and I am curious how everybody's doing. I do apologize for earlier in the week not being able to get a video out. I did fall ill. Had a little bout of the flu come up, and it just, it was one of those moments where you just don't feel like doing anything, and you have I had a bad headache and a little bit of a cough and some sniffles and all that kind of good stuff. And so I was like, I don't think I'm going to get a video recorded at this time, but we will definitely get back to doing the live stream. And so here we are. No questions tonight? Nothing? I'm surprised. Or is my chat not working properly? Everybody can hear me, right? I don't have any comments that says you can't hear me. So are we all quiet this evening? Shy, afraid to ask questions? I'm just going to sit here and wait. And drink my blueberry lemonade. Test, test. By the way, if you're interested, I've never done this before, but I was just thinking that maybe I could post my notes of what I kind of put down for reviews. If you're interested in that, I could start doing that. Now, keep in mind, notes usually are done early on in the review process. I may tweak them a little bit, and they're usually pretty straightforward. So if you can read that, I don't know if you can see that on screen or not, but that's kind of the way my notes are. They'll just be saying something like bass, lacks quality, impact, and texture, but there's a little bit. And then I fill in the rest. So I don't really script out my reviews. So if you're interested in notes like that, I haven't kept any of my past ones. But if you're interested, I could probably pass those along, usually on Discord, but I could make them public if there's an interest. All right, let's see here. Matt, do you plan on reviewing the Truth Ear Pure? Already did. Don't know if the warmer tilt makes it better than the Hexa. And then Curtis says, no comment necessary, but posting to see if your chat works. Chat works. So people are just being quiet tonight. Matt, let me pull up the Pure review for you, and I'll just post it in the comment for you. And give me a moment here. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Pure. Do, do, do. All right, so the Pure was actually done on a live stream. So the link is going to be to a live stream that I did in which I reviewed the Pure and I compared it to the Etude, and also I included some comments about the Hexa in it as well. So the live stream wasn't like updated or whoa, what's going on here? It wasn't like updated to include chapters or anything like that. So you might have to kind of scroll through if you don't want to watch the whole entire thing. But in all my live stream reviews, I do the review first. So within the first 20 to 30, 40 minutes, however long that one might have taken longer because it was it's going to be in that first part of the live stream. All right, so couple of things that have come in for review over the last, in fact, we might as well mention this because Paul, if he's not already in the comments, is going to ask. So in honor of Paul, we will mention what is on the review, whoops, not that, the review schedule. But a couple of things that have come in recently are going to be mentioned in here. So we have Tantrum Fishing, which is going to get reviewed fairly soon. We have the Rum Audio Blues, which also are going to be reviewed. Not sure if that'll be live stream or video. Not sure how much interest you all have in the Rum Audio Blues. There was some interest. It was mentioned on Discord and by fellow reviewer Intuit Reviews, so I should review them. So I purchased them, but I didn't get a lot of interesting comments and stuff about them. I'm not sure if you all are interested in the Rum Audio Blues. And then we have the Opus X OP24, the BASN B Master X or B Master 10, the Pula Unicron, which I know a lot of you are interested in that one being reviewed. We have the QOA Cloudscape. That one is a very interesting IEM as well. Not sure how much interest you all have in that, but let me know. Soft Ears RSV or RS5 Mark II. It is the RS5 Mark II. Just came in. Very interesting IEM. And then we have the FIO QX13 dongle, Colorfly CDA L1, and the Tri-TK1. The Tri-TK1 is a new dongle that just came out as well. Very interesting. Keep Hi-Fi Tri. And then we also have the FIO M21 and the FIO S15 and the FIO FH19. Those three, I'm not sure if they're all going to get reviews or not. DAPs are kind of hard to review on a channel. So I might just kind of talk about it in a live stream. I might take some of these products that I'm not going to do a full video on and just kind of talk about some general idea of stuff during a live stream one day. Then we had the Bellari BA525, which is a tube. It's like a preamp amp type thing. Gonna be interesting to do that review. They sent me 2 variants to find out which one I like. Also have the Fosse Audio GR70, which is a tube amp, which I've been talking about forever. Definitely need to do that review. the Aune N7, which is a new amplifier that's coming out from Aune. It also has a preamp in it. Very, very interesting device. Then we have the Kiwi Ears Altruva. Gonna do a listen in comparison to the previous one. Kiwi Ears kind of thought that mine that I had was borked, so they want me to verify that. So I might do that during a live stream at some time. And that's it. That's all that we have in right now. So I saw a couple questions come through. All right, so Curtis says, I would be interested in your take on foam tips with a more neutral sound coloring. So foam tips, I actually don't mind them. So I do use foam tips. Now there are a couple that I don't prefer, and this is going to, some people will agree, some won't. I don't like comply tips. To me, comply tips are a little too thick, and with most gear that I use them with, they actually alter the sound. I find that comply tips with everything that I've used them with really hurts details and really makes things warm and dark sounding. And it doesn't matter if it's a super bright sound or a already somewhat warm sound. I find that comply tips really alter the sound presentation of a product. And I don't care for that, so I don't use comply tips. The foam tips that I prefer are sonic foams. I've put links in before. In fact, let me put a link in for them now. And the other one that I like are Daconis. I find that Daconi tips also work very well. Here's a one for sonic foam. So with sonic foams, they have a big, huge list of the different IEMs. So you just find the IEM that you are using, and it'll tell you what size to purchase, and just purchase them. And that goes off of the nozzle size. So I use sonic foams with my Westone Mach 60, and I also use them with various other neutral IEMs, the Audio Oracle, Mark III, Tanzu Neza at times, Tantrum Origin, and various others. If I use foams. I mostly use foams when I'm monitoring, because I like to have a little bit more isolation, but I do use them at times when listening to products as well, just around the house. Sometimes, like tonight, the Septet sounded best with foam tips, because the foam tips help to quell those upper mids, the 6 to 9K region. But for the most part, I find that sonic foams sound very similar to the silicone foam variants of a IEM that is, usually brought by the manufacturer as a stock tip, or sometimes sounds better. So yes, I do use foam tips. There are a couple other foam tips that I use sporadically, but the majority of the ones I use are sonic foam. You're very welcome. You use them for stage work. Yeah, so sonic foams I find work really well. So if you have something small, like a Westone or a Sennheiser, they do have a nozzle size for those that they include, and they work very, very well. I found that sonic foams they have just the right amount of like density to the foam and yet are comfortable. I don't like foam tips that are really thick and like expand my ear hole. I like them just to be snug, but also to seal. And so I find that the sonic foams do that better than comply. To me, comply's always felt a little large in my ear, no matter what size I used. And I just find sonic foams to be my favorite. But if I was doing any type of stage work, sonic or foam tips are definitely what I use. I have tried a few like triple flange silicone with various things, especially with like Etymotics, and to me they just over time became uncomfortable. Like I couldn't wear them as long as I can foams. I can wear foams for a lot longer for stage work. So Hopefully that helps. And they're fairly cheap too. In fact, they come in these. So this is a sonic foam case. So when you order them, they come in these big packages, and you get all of those. As you can tell, I'm using 2 of them already. But they come in this nice little carrying case, and it locks. Good question. Don't talk about tips that often. I have thought about doing some sort of video or a live stream discussing tips and like discussing differences that I've heard and what tips are my favorites. If you're interested in something like that, let me know in the comments as well. Also, a thing that I did that would be interesting for you all to give me your feedback on. A couple weeks ago, I did a poll. I put up, I think, 3 or 4 different products that I had available and ready to kind of be reviewed, and asked which one you wanted to hear next. And I based my review off of that. Did you guys like it that way? Did it feel like you had some input on what was going to be reviewed next? Should I do that on a weekly basis? The week before, ask, okay, we got these 4, because normally I have 3 or 4 things kind of going through the review process at a time. So I'd be ready to review and, put the poll in and say, okay, which one? And then whatever one after 24 hours gets the most, percentage points, that would be the next thing to be reviewed. Is that something you guys want to do? Would you feel more involved in the process? I don't really know if any other reviewers do that kind of thing. Wow, really quiet crowd tonight. It's Friday night. I'm trying to think, is there something going on that would be drawing everybody's attention? I know on West Coast, if you're in the Pacific, it's dinner time, so I get that. Or you're driving home in traffic. East Coast, it's 8:30-ish, 8:40. I don't think there's any football game. Well, there might be a college game on. Baseball. Anyways. Any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, desires, ideas? Hello. Oh, royalty. King Crimson. Hello. Hi. Don't have royalty come by too often, so welcome. We are honored. Sorry, of course I'm joking. Oh, all right. So Shamey says, I live on the other side of the world, so the timing is kind of good. Well, hey, so I know I have a friend who's in Singapore, and we've been trying to get together to do a video chat or a voice chat of some kind, and he's sleeping while I'm available, and when he's available, I'm working. It's like really, we have like a 1 hour window, and it's like nearly impossible to. So I'm glad that it works for you, though, being on the other side of the world. All right, let's see. Contrail, hey there. Looking forward to your Tantrum Origin review. Already did 2 of them. Did one original, and then Tantrum sent me an Origin, and I did another review of it, and was like, this isn't like what I thought it was, and ended up loving it, and now it sits on my desk as a reference. Let's see. Brito, hello. Sorry to miss the review. Glad to be able to drop by. You can watch the beginning of it if you want. Contrail, you missed it. Would you like me to post it for you? Give me a moment here, and we will drop them into the chat for you. All right, so all right, origin. So we will post. Whoops, helps if you spell it right. Origin. There we go. All right, so we will put both of them down in. The first one is going to be the original. Whoops, nope, don't want that, don't want that. You're not getting access to my... All right, here we go. All right, so the first one is going to be the original review. And there that is. And then the second one will be my revise. And you'll be able to tell which one's which by the title. Because the title of the second one is I was wrong. So, all right, there you go. But yeah, I actually do like the origin. At first, when I first heard it and it was a borrowed one, you know, I did the review and it was okay. I was like, yeah, it's all right. Not sold on it. And then when Tantrum just out of the blue said, hey, will you review this product? And oh, by the way, we have the origin. And so they included that. I revisited the origin and kind of just was, I'm not sure if the other one was, you know, something wrong with it. I don't think there was. But maybe it was just more time put in, you know, a little bit different music sources, who knows, but my perception kind of changed, and I really liked origin now. That does happen. I've had some things in for review, some stuff that I really enjoyed for a while, even maybe used as a reference, and then over time you just kind of go, you know, it's not as good as I thought it was, or it just doesn't mesh with gear anymore, you know, or something. I'm, you know, it just changes. And then there's other things where you're kind of the Hi-Fi in Sundara was this way for me. You know, you listen to it for a while, and when I did the review, I was like, I don't really care for the treble a whole lot. It's a little aggressive. And over time, the Sundara wore on me, and I actually really enjoyed the Sundara quite a bit. So perceptions do change. All right, so let's see here. Mr. King Crimson wants to know what my favorite IEM under 200. Do I have to say favorite, or can I give a couple recommendations? It's really hard to choose one particular one, but I'm going to reference my tier list, which is at the top of the chat. I did put a link to that, and under 200 bucks. All right, so let's scroll down here to the $200 price point. I'd probably have to go with the Moondrop Cadence. That one is really good. It's pretty hard to beat for what it offers at $190, even though it is a single dynamic. There are a couple others, so you have the Kiwi Ears Aether if you're going to go for planar. That would be another really good choice. course, you have the Katori Zephyr, which is another really good choice if you want something a little bit more neutral leaning. Um, and a little bit on the warmer side, I would go with the Zephyr. If you wanted something a little bit more, a little bit on the brighter side, um, go with the Cadence. Both of them are spectacular, though. Um, those would probably be my three in that price point, $200-ish. All right. All right, let's see here. All right, so Burrito, I have a silly question. There's no silly questions unless it's legitly like comedic gold. All right, let's see here. Well, budget DACs. Been looking to try one, but must be a budget one. They usually have a SPDIF out that doesn't output a high bit rate, so why put it before? Um, okay, so I don't use SPDIF very much at all. I am pretty much a USB only guy, and streaming with Bluetooth or streaming with Wi-Fi. I don't really use coax or SPDIF or um, I2 squared, anything like that. They, to me, it just doesn't really fit into my my use case because I listen to the majority of stuff off of my laptop and off of a phone or a DAP, and so I just connect them via USB. For me, it's just convenience. The only time that I use fiber optic, is if I plugging my PS5 into something, or I use HDMI out for that, or I use USB. So USB is most of it. So I don't really have an answer for you on that. But when it comes to small DACs, whether portable or a desktop, um, I would go with, if you want to do portable, I would go with the SMSL DS20. If you need SPDIF, FIO has one which is called the Q15, which has SPDIF, which is the higher bit rate. I think but I do believe SPDIF is only up to 24,192. That's the limit of SPDIF, if I remember correctly. Um, Same thing for coax. So 24,192 is good enough, for sure. But if you are wanting like MQA or DSD or any of those higher 32-bit 768s and all those high stuff, you have to go USB. So, but if you want portable and you want $200-ish range, I would look at SMSL DS20. FIO Q15, I think, is 350. If you want something cheaper than that, you could go with dongles. There are some really high quality dongles. Desktop wise, I would recommend the X Duo XA02 or the FIO K11. I wouldn't go K11 R2R. To me, it's too warm and it lacks detail and resolution. But the X Duo is better than both of those FIOs, so I would definitely go with the X Duo for that similar price point. But you're gonna not get SPDIF or coax with the X Duo. There are a few other things you could go with, but I would definitely look at something portable to try out first, like the SMSL DS20. King Crimson, I have not tried the EPZ P50. I don't even know what that is. Sorry. There's so many products out there. Okay, so a DDC like the SMSL PO100. I have to look that up. What is the SMSL PO100? Okay, so give me a second. Okay, so this is a USB digital interface. Does support DSD native and DOP. Also supports MQA, which is interesting. Um, has a XU316 USB, which is good for XMOS. Um, UAC one and 2, so you can use it for gaming, which is nice. Um, so what this is USB in, and then it converts to go out. Um, so you're going to basically, with these devices, you're downsampling unless you use USB to USB, or you're upsampling if you're going in with some of the others and then going outward with USB. Um, I haven't heard this device. I don't know how it would sound, but it probably is fine. Um, but a lot of the reasons for the bit rates is because of the limitations that those others have. So coax and SPDIF and they have they're capped at 24,192. That's just how it works. Um, HDMI, um, USB, you can get all the higher end things, higher up bit rates. And personally, a lot of people say that you can hear the differences. I haven't experienced that. So I don't know. Honestly, I would just, depending on what you're going to use it for, I'd go straight with a DAC personally, but a DAC and an amp. But using it as an additional clock, I haven't ever noticed anything really in that regard either. Um, I, to me, sometimes you can get too clean, and you can overclock things, you can underclock things, and you can just make more of a jumbled mess by adding in more into the chain instead of just keeping it as simple as possible. For me, simple is best and is my preferred. The less mixed in for it to all have to go through, it just means more filtering and more changes and more alterations. So I like plug and play. It just keeps it more simple. And most DACs and amps, especially DACs, because DACs have clocks in them, most of the new ones from competent companies are really good. And I don't have any issues with jitter or stutter, anything of that sort. And I don't have any noise in my from my USBs. Just use a quality USB cable. I'm not saying an expensive quality cable, a good one. Don't go shopping on some iffy website and go, oh hey, they got a USB cable for $2, and buy that. I would definitely buy it from a reputable source and a reputable company. Um, and you're gonna be okay. But if you start to purchase it from one of those companies that has a name that you can't pronounce and no one else has ever heard of it, I probably wouldn't purchase it. I would buy something that you've heard of from a company. You might have to pay a few extra dollars, but it's going to be trustworthy and it more than likely is going to work. That's just my personal experience. As far as USB-C interfaces and DDCs, they work. I have no experience with the PO100. And as far as using additional clocks, I haven't had to deal with that and don't really see a reason to. All right, so King Crimson, you're welcome. Okay, so Brito, thanks for that. You're very welcome. Was thinking about kind of the same lines. Better to save for an FT1 headphone Have I heard the FT13? Have not. It is very interesting. Haven't been offered one yet. Um, Looks interesting. Would be curious about it for sure. If one was provided, I definitely would review it. If funds become available, I'd probably pick one up. You're going with FT1 or FT1 Pro? Just curious. FT1 Pro, I haven't heard. FT1, I was kind of, yeah, I was all right with. Wasn't my favorite, was somewhat aggressive for me. Hey, Quince, love and respect. Thank you. Same to you. Appreciate you showing up and for the kind words. Um, Hopefully, you've had a good week. Hopefully, everybody's had a good week and is going to have a good weekend. And it's going to be a little warmer here in the Midwest for us. August was a really beautiful month as far as when it comes to like Indiana weather. Normally, August is brutal. Usually, we're 90s, super humid, don't want to go outside type of weather. And this August was very comfortable. There was only a couple of days where it was hot and steamy. Most of the days were, 70s and 80s type of weather. And September's been quite beautiful itself. Actually, it was a little bit chilly last weekend, and then this weekend is supposed to warm up and it's supposed to be back up into the mid 80s to high 90s. Of course, that's Fahrenheit for anybody who's not in the U.S. So I know a lot of you don't use Fahrenheit. We're the oddballs. So, um, anyways, enough about the weather. All right, so let's see. Matt, back from the peer review. I think I'll pass on it anyway. Thanks for the review. You're welcome. I totally understand that. If you're, looking at pure versus hexa, which way are you looking? Do you want a little warmer, bassier sound, but not quite as analytical, clinical? I get that. If you're sensitive to the higher treble regions and things like that, yeah, the pure might be something to consider, but Hexa has that little bit of special sauce, a little bit more neutral sound. So I totally understand that. Um, like Quince. Also, getting back on weather since there's no more questions. Um, this year it's been real quiet with like storms and rain. We haven't gotten a lot of it, which I'm thankful for. Um, but I don't want to curse it or anything, make it all come at the end of the year. But it's been a very pleasurable summer for us here, which is kind of rare. Um, so a little bit different. Maybe it's preparing us for. My dad said that this winter is supposed to be a rough winter. So hopefully my dad's wrong. All right, getting back to audio. Did you finally get the chance to get your hands on the MM100? No. Audeze MM100. I did believe I heard it at Oxpona a couple years ago, but I have not had one in house. Or the new is it M50 or something like that? That looks interesting as well. Um, Rado FT1. One, a close back one. I have the HE4XX for an open back, and we'll wait a little to go up next year. US $200 to $300 for an open back. Totally understandable. You can get some nice used ones in that price range if you don't mind going used. For open back, if you can usually get some really good Sennheisers, even some older Sennheisers, like for example, these great classics, the 580 Precision. you can usually find those quite cheaply. You might have to do a little bit of TLC with them, change pads, things like that, but the pads are very easy to change on a 580. You could also get an Audio Technica R70X or the R50X for in that price point very much. Some excellent open backs. 28C. What is that in 20 and Fahrenheit? I have to look this up. I'm terrible at conversion. All right, so 28C to Fahrenheit is 82 degrees. That's not too bad. 82.4 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's a little bit on the warm side for an evening, but it is tolerable. At least it's not like 100 degrees. A little warm for 8:30 at night, though. I'll give you that. All right, let's see here. What is it? I wonder what it is currently here. Current temp in Logansport, Indiana. It is currently 74. So 74F to Celsius. So that's 23 Celsius for you. So it's a little bit cooler, not too much. Not bad. All right. All right, so Lori. Hey, Lori, nice to see you. Longtime friend of the channel. And let's see. In my opinion, cables can be overly hyped. Yes. Yes, they can. Let's see. Way back yonder, when two-channel audio used lamp wire, and we thought it was wonderful. You don't have to spend big bucks for them. I totally agree. You know, it's really interesting is I have been sent some cables that are quite expensive on this channel. In fact, I have one right here. Oops. So this is the Zickman Tibor, and I think it comes in roughly $500 or $600. Right, the Zickman Tibor. Love this cable. Did a review of it. Think it's fantastic. And I've also reviewed a bunch of Effect Audio, used Effect Audio, and you know, one of my favorite RCA cable brands is World's Best Audio, WBC, and you know, several other products that I use. So I like expensive cables. Do I think they make a difference? Maybe, slightly. You know, there's a little bit of difference. Most of the differences I've said many a time, even discussing it with you, Lori, is most of the difference that I hear is between silver and copper. And, you know, some of it also has to do with the sensitivity of the cables, things like that. They can make slight differences. But is it worth spending all the money? If you're just looking for that particular sound, no, not really. The reason why I change cables usually for the most part is maybe it will alter the sound slightly when it comes to the tuning. You know, if I need it to be a little warmer or a little bit more analytical, I'm going copper or silver. But the most of the time why I change them, I like the look of them, the feel of it. Maybe it changes, you know, the perception of how cool the IEM looks or the headphone looks. That's the reason why I change cables most of the time. And that's the reason why I haven't paid buku dollars for cables. Majority of the cables that I do have from Effect Audio and have been provided for review purposes. And I think the most expensive cable I have purchased is for my Sennheiser 8XX. And it was a really expensive cable. It was like $200. And a lot of that has to do with just because Sennheiser's connections are expensive for that headphone and things like that. But it is a good quality cable. Do I hear a difference over stock cable? Maybe. Good point, though. Totally agree. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. Um, Paul was out walking the dog. I did mention anything feedback about the prototype of your collab. So, um, Katori is on their way back to Singapore, and we're going to be getting together to talk about that. The initial feedback that I got through comments and discussions on Discord and some things that Katori mentioned was that it was pretty much well received. Most people enjoyed it. There was not really, from what I heard, a lot of negative comments. People saying it was bad or anything. I didn't hear anything of that sort. Um, I Katori hasn't shared all of their thoughts, so I'm not sure what all was communicated at CanJam itself. Um, but I would say it sounds like it was pretty positive. More to come. We'll see what's going to happen there. And then once we get together and discuss things, that will also probably start to move along the process of going into production, final tuning, and aesthetics, and release date and things like that. So some more information should be coming soon. I just don't have it at this moment. Right now, things seem pretty positive. Okay, so Brio says that 28C is a little too warm for over ears, so AC is on, um, along with IEMs. So that's interesting. So for me, um, over ear headphones, I've never really had an issue with, even on warm days. There have been a couple where like the pads and stuff will get warm, so I understand that. But usually I don't have a real big problem of warmer weather bothering me wearing headphones. Unless I'm outside. If I go outside, for one, I don't really like wearing headphones outside while I'm walking. Find them to be kind of clunky. But if I'm sitting outside or sitting in a car, driving or something like that, and it's warm, I don't like them on. So I can kind of understand, but being on the inside, I really don't have an issue with that. Um, but I also have a fan that blows at my desk all the time, so maybe that's why. I don't know. Interesting. We're all different though, for sure. All right, so Lori, in the 80s and 90s, I used to go to a very high-end store that sold to doctors, lawyers, and all the those type of people, and promoted $15,000 to $20,000 cables, and they believed it. The owner laughed all the way to the bank. Wow, that's okay. So that's ridiculous. And I know that there's cables out there, because I've been to audio shows and things like that, and you'll see these cables that are this thick, and you're just like, really? And in fact, I've been to some rooms and where they demonstrate, let's change this cable to this cable. And do you hear a difference? Or we're going to plug this cable into this speaker, or this cable into this speaker, and then we're going to swap them, and you tell me which one's the more expensive, blah, blah, blah. And I've always sat there, and there was one room, I can't remember which one it was at one point at an audio show, in which I did hear a difference, and it was more about like the imaging changed and the way that the depth was in the sound. And I was kind of like, is that more of the sensitivity and the impedance causing something in electronics making a sound different, or is it the actual cable itself, like tuning and things like that, or is it the speaker that's making that difference? And so when I found out how expensive the cable was, which was thousands of dollars, not 15,000 like the ones you're talking about, but I mean it was like $5,000. I was like, forget that. It's not worth it. Plus, I didn't like the sound that it did. So there is a lot of snake oil and a lot of misguidedness when it comes to speakers and cables, for sure. Um, the thing with cables that I have learned is just find the one that you like and happy with and willing to spend the money. Don't go searching ridiculously, paying ridiculous dollar points, price points, just to find that perfect cable. If it sounds good, stick with it. Don't don't go down the rabbit hole. You're just gonna waste your money. Um, I mean, it's fun to review them, but really the differences are so minuscule. You're just chasing after 1%, maybe 2% differences. I mean, it's just craziness. Um, I'm not surprised that they're out of business. That's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I've heard about the crystal thing. There's also rocks that you're supposed to be able to put on, and I get it. If you're in vinyl, you have to have it weighted. You have to have, certain things like that. But when it comes to like little vibrations, like your deck, hey, I'm gonna put this rock or this crystal, and you have to get it in the exact spot, um, and it's gonna improve the sound. I don't buy that because here on my desk, if I can do this without knocking my drink over, it's all solid. It's not like wobbling around, like, causing issues. They're all stable. They all have rubber feet on them. There is one product that I got. This was a couple years ago that had no feet on it. It had no. It was just a metal case, and when it was sitting, you could put your hand on it. You could literally feel it vibrate. That might be a case for, okay, we need to put something under it to help it so it doesn't vibrate. Did I notice a difference? No. It just made me feel better. Plus, it wasn't scratching up everything else that it was around. So there's a lot of weird beliefs. And, is there a thing about cable risers? Is there a thing, with different speaker stands? Absolutely. Speaker stands do make a difference. Some of them wobble really bad. Some of them aren't sturdy. Different sizes matter, that type of stuff. I get that. But when it comes to like electronics, come on, people. That's what I sometimes want to say. It's just like, really, because I've gone to audio shows, and some of these manufacturers, I don't want to call them out by name, but some of these manufacturers will just sit there and try to convince you that they're making this huge difference, and you go, I don't hear it. I I don't hear it. If it's there, it's not enough for me to pay attention to. And if it's not enough for me to pay attention to, it's not enough for me to spend money on. You'd really have to convince me that there's a difference and prove it for me to purchase it. And I'm not going to sit there. Also, if you send it to me to review, if I don't hear the difference, I'm going to say it. And that's the reason why, especially in a lot of my cable videos that I've done and cable reviews, I'm like, look, it's a nice cable. It's well built. There's this slight difference, tonality wise, maybe a slight difference in improvement when it comes to transients and when details and resolution, very slight, but it ain't worth the dollar amount. And I say that in every one of them. Yeah, exactly. $500 crystal isn't good enough for me. Um, I'll definitely keep my money. I agree with you, Jeff. Now, the only time that crystal is worth it is if it's going on a dining room table. And my wife is going to use it to present some glorious meal to, somebody. We're gonna have guests over. That's where crystal belongs. Um, doesn't belong on my deck. I'm sorry. It's just so my mother-in-law, bless her heart, she bought these little pyramids, and they were made of black diamond or something. It was some sort of gem of some sort. She paid pretty good money on them. She gave me two of them. And she claimed that it was supposed to remove like the electronic buzz and the hiss, and you put them on. In fact, I have one over here. Give me a second. Now it's been sitting collecting dust for a long time, so bear with me. It's a little dirty, but anyways, looks like this. And she claims that if you set it in areas of it, it's supposed to cleanse it from magnetics or whatever. And you notice difference. No, it looks cool. I'll use it as a paperweight because it is a little hefty, a little heavy. But yeah, I heard no difference for putting it around. And that's the craziness that some of these people, claim. They say put it on your speaker, and supposedly it's supposed to make it sound more clean, it's supposed to cleanse it, it's supposed to do this or that. I have no idea what they're hearing. Maybe what they're hearing is when you put this on your speaker, because it's heavier, it's lowering the speaker down, and it's changing the way that the airwave is hitting your ears. Versus if you take it off, it rises up a little bit, and so it's back at that other spot. Maybe that's the difference they're hearing, but they think they're hearing something magical. I have no idea. But stuff like this, or anyways, let's see. I'm waiting for the $50 million audiophile crystal made by aliens. So when the Artemis goes up in a couple of months, they're bringing one back. So we'll wait for it. All right, let's see. Angel aliens. There's some craziness out there, and I don't want to disparage people, but really, really, people, do you think that we're, anyways? All right. There's one with quartz crystals that are meant to plug into the amp. Now, I know that there's like filters and things like that, and do those work? Yeah, in some cases, in certain areas of the world do have dirtier power than others. And here in the US, we're pretty blessed with cleaner power. And so some of those filters aren't necessary as much. And do they make as much of a difference to us as they do others in the world? Probably not. So I can understand where the filters come in, but just putting a gem in somewhere, really? I mean, I could take this and I could set it on my power supply. Is it going to make a difference? No. Um, is it going to make me feel better? No. Would it maybe make somebody else? Sure. Um, so, there's a lot of stuff on, like I received a couple of cables that had gems built into them, like into the terminations. There's like a gem that it goes through. Did it sound any different? No. All it did was jack the price up of the cable. Um, it looked cool. Did it really make a difference? No. In fact, one of the cables I didn't like. So, um, What do you think of online demos? Are they reliable for tonality? So here's the thing about online demos. So there's a lot that goes into them that causes variables that will have to be considered. So number one, you have the source that the person creating the demo is using. You know, are they using a laptop? Are they using a computer? Are they using vinyl? Are they using, you know, what DAC, what amp? How are they sourcing it? Is it USB? Is it coax? Is it SPDIF? Is it, you know, HDMI? You know, whatever. You have to take that into play. What cables are they using? What speakers are they using? What volume did they control? What microphones did they use to record them? All of that. And then how did they upload it, transfer it, and then you have the YouTube part of the equation, the processing that it goes through, how it downsamples, and then how it gets back to upsample, and then what it's being played back on. Is it on your computer? Is it on your TV? Is it through your soundbar? Is it through your speakers? Is it through your headphones? Is it through your IEM? What DAC are you using? What amp are you using? What cables are you? There's so many variables that can alter the sound. So, are they accurate for tonality? Kinda. I wouldn't say they're 100% because there's so many other things that have to be in place. You would have to, you don't have 100% controllable elements to be able to get a full accurate. The only way that you're going to get 100% accuracy is to be sitting there live, hearing it being played back. So they'll give you an idea of how something sounds, but all of that can change as soon as it sits in your room. It's kind of like using graphs and measurements. It's a tool that's going to give you an idea, but it doesn't tell the full story. So there's a lot of things to consider when it comes to it. And that's the reason why most of those channels that have done demos and haven't really done anything else as far as the channel don't really grow. They have to use some other avenues to be able to, you know, keep interest because there's too many faults in just doing demos. Even if you're the best at recording them, most people will know there's fallacies in it. It's not 100% accurate. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't exist because they should. As I said, they're a good tool and they tell you a bit, but they don't tell you the full story. That's my take. All right. Contrail, cool that your mother-in-law got you an audiophile themed gift, even if it doesn't actually work. I don't know if she was actually thinking audiophile when she purchased this. I think it was more of she's just kind of eccentric in that way and was worried about all kinds of electronic things happening in her household, and so she gave everybody that she thought, you know, could use one, you know, that type of thing. I don't think it really was specifically for audio in that regard. But yeah, I mean, it kind of fits in that regard though. All right, so let's see here. Jeff, I can understand that people feel good about crystals, good feelings while you listen to music is good, but people take it too far. Absolutely. There's so many things like even becoming too serious about, you know, certain things when it comes to the music that they're listening to or to the they take the enjoyment out of it and it becomes more focused on only the measurements, the graphs, the configurations and the drivers and the technology and the cables and this and that they forget to enjoy the music itself. You know, they're more focused on getting that perfect sound, and they're not enjoying the music for what it is. Music's to be enjoyed, and oftentimes I find that they're not enjoying the music. They're more just tweak this, tweak that, tweak. Let's do this, and letting the measurement or the graph or, you know, the influence dictate what they're hearing instead of letting their ears hear it and enjoying it for what it is. All right. So, my mother used to cleanse my aura by running after me with a flip flop. No crystals needed. You know, you could do that too. My wife has chased after me with a frying pan before. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That cleansed my aura quite quickly. I kid. Um, let's see. AJ, my AudioQuest cables are a snake oil. Only the interconnects have arrows on for direction, and my Toslink cable has real gold connectors. You know what? I have some cables like that too, and some of them have come with like dongles and things. And one of them, the arrow actually did matter, and I think that was the it was the Afu Snowy Night or something like that. Yeah, it was the Afu. I that one I had to put the cable in, and I couldn't use that cable. I had to use that cable that they provided. I couldn't use another cable. It like freaked out my phone when I would connect the dongle with any other cable. Um, I don't know what they did internally. The cable did work with other products, but that dongle did not like other cables. It was really weird. And you had to have the arrows point a certain way. Normally, the arrows don't matter. And I have had the RCA cables with the arrows pointing. You have to supposedly, you know, one says source, one says in, you know. Um, okay. Um, I tried them backwards, didn't really notice any difference. I have used AudioQuest cables. They're nicely built. They're kind of pricey, but I mean they're not bad. I don't mind the cable. Um, I've also used a couple of, like more expensive USB cables. Did I notice a difference? Absolutely not. Nicely built though. Um, that's the reason why I like World's Best Cables, WBC cables, is because they're built nicely, and they have the lengths that I need. Um, do I notice the difference of how they sound? Absolutely not. They sound just basically like any other cable. There have been a couple really cheap cables I have gotten from a few manufacturers that didn't sound really that good, and I think it was just cheap wire and you know the quality. So as mentioned, you can get a little bit difference, but it's very rare. All right, let's see here. Rodney, seriously, for me, I don't care what they use as long as I can demo them and they sound good. To me, then it's a go for me. Greetings. Just got back from my morning exercise and morning greetings. Well, hello, Rodney. No, I understand that. If it sounds good on what you're playing back, the only thing that I would give as a warning is it may not sound that way when you get it. Um, because there's a lot of variables that go into it. There's a lot of compression on the YouTube side of it. Um, there's also, you have to kind of understand how it was recorded. Some are better than others. Again, it's kind of the way you're using it though. It's a tool to kind of, hey, it kind of sounds good on mine. It probably would sound good. So I get that aspect of it. Just a little word of warning. Burrito, thanks for coming by. You have to run. Nice talking with you and sharing with everybody. Have a nice weekend. Greetings from Colombia. Same to you. Have a great weekend. Lori, I forgot to say that Maple Shade is mostly a two-channel stereo Rex and etc. And things that I can figure out why they sell a lot of it. Or I can't figure out why they sell a lot of it. Well, there's some people just like things for the name. Some people like to support locals. Um, some people like to think that they're getting the best, and unfortunately there are some that believe spending more means better quality. Um, to each their own. I'm glad that they're making money. Um, it's there's just so many variables, you know. And as I've always said, if you enjoy it, that's good. You know, I don't have to enjoy it as long as you enjoy it. You know, if you're happy with spending the money and you're happy with what you have, I'm glad that you enjoy it. Might not be for me, might not be for everybody else, but if you enjoy it, that's what's important. And if you're happy with what you spent, that's what's important. If you want to spend $1 million and you have $1 million to spend and you're happy about it, cool. I don't have $1 million, and I probably wouldn't be happy spending it on audio. But I'm glad that they're happy about spending it. You know, the only thing for me is don't go in debt to be happy. Listen to gear and purchase gear within your means. It's not worth going into debt to enjoy it. Be content with what you have and save up. Let's see. Rodney, I'm fortunate that we have 3 hi-fi shops that allow us to demo before purchase, so it's always a blessing. Absolutely. I unfortunately don't have that here in my area. There is, we have a Sweetwater that's about an hour and a half away that I can go to and demo some headphones and some speakers and things like that. Of course, it's more studio type stuff than it is more stuff that I review on the channel. And there's a couple audio shops about 45 minutes to an hour away, and there's a few down in Indianapolis that I can go to, but none of them are really any type of gear that I would review. So, you know, I'm more dependent on vendors sending me stuff and hearing it for the first time, first impressions and doing reviews. And, you know, the other thing is money doesn't grow on trees, so I can't purchase a lot of gear. And so, you know, that slows things down a little bit. Also, I can't just walk in and purchase something or, you know, anything like that. Just my bank account says no, and my wife definitely says no. But I'm glad that you have the ability to go and demo gear. It would be nice to be able to have here in my area somebody who sold more like IEMs that I review on the channel close by, so I could go and hear a few things. You know, unfortunately, it's audio shows. That's the only place I really get to hear some of the newer stuff, and I can't make those all the time. But I'm glad that you have that ability. That's really cool. All right, so it's been an hour and a half. We'll go 2 hours today. So got about another half hour to get your questions, comments in. If you want to continue talking about crystals or whatever this is made of, little triangles, snake oil type stuff. If you want to talk about the septet or anything else, feel free to drop it down in the comments, and we will definitely chat it up. Good conversations tonight about cables and thoughts about that. So speaking of cables, one thing that, you know, I mentioned in passing was I have heard a few different USB cables. Most of the time, USB cable that comes with a manufacturer is just fine. But I did purchase this one, which is a Wire World, I think. And I have another one also. And it's a nice cable. Looks cool. Does it sound any different? No. It's nicely built. That's the only thing. I hear differences in USB cables. I have never heard a difference in a USB cable. Well, I take that back. Never say never. The only time I heard a difference in USB cable was one cable that wouldn't stay in, and it kept like shorting out because it kept pulling out because the socket was like terribly built. Um, Other than that, I haven't heard any differences in USB cables. As far as speaker cables, they're pretty much like headphone and IEM cables. The only difference that I've heard is if it's silver or copper. Um, and I haven't gotten like interference or anything like that, but I'm not a speaker guru, so I don't really know what I'm listening for when it comes to that regard. Um, all right, so let's see. Matt, anything on Crinier? I have not gotten offered any Crinier stuff. It's not really been a offer at all. In fact, it's never been mentioned to me. I don't even know where you purchase it from. I haven't researched it and really asked for it either. So, um, nothing on that front. Let's see, AJ, lots of online stores now. Absolutely. You return gear, no quibbles. You can buy accidental damaged and breakdown covers. That's also refunded if you return the headphone. Um, that's that's great. I'm glad that they do that. There's, for me, it's a little different being a content creator, and most things get sent to me for review purposes. I'm not purchasing a whole lot. The things that I do purchase, I haven't had problems with. And for most of the gear, I try to, like, for example, the FIO SP5s are broken at the moment, and I'm working with FIO. I try to work with manufacturers. If I have a customer service problem, quality problem, work with them just like I would as a customer, as a consumer, to get the experience. And I don't want preference. I don't want to be given this super, oh, well, he's a reviewer, we're going to ship out one immediately, or we're going to make sure that he gets the golden goose product. I want to just get a product and be treated like a normal person. I don't want any special privilege. And so I make sure that my relationship with them is understood to be that way. And with FIO, it is. FIO has been working through it. They've asked me to give them some more information, and I've been doing it, and I feel like a consumer trying to troubleshoot with them through email the various problems that we've had with the SP5. I also had an issue with another product. I can't remember the manufacturer at one point, and I did the same thing working through. So I don't have a lot of things break. I have had a few things shipped and be like totally destroyed in the package. But for the most part, most things have arrived fairly safely and have lasted. I do keep the majority of gear that is sent to me. I don't resell it. I do gift it and give it away, but I don't really resell many things. I have sold a few things, but I don't resell. So the majority of stuff just sits and lingers. And so I break it out and listen to it, and it has lasted. So thankfully, I haven't had to return much gear, is the moral of that story and that ramble. But I'm glad that these online stores don't give any guff to it. I wouldn't recommend purchasing something and then just returning it just so you hear it. I have heard about people getting in trouble, especially with like Amazon, for doing that, purchasing stuff nonstop and then just returning it all. I think they do frown upon that eventually. So that's not a practice I would recommend. Just return things out of necessity. No, I understood, AJ, that you were talking about viewers. Um, but my channel is kind of directed towards coming from a viewer. I tried to have that mentality that I'm a viewer, I'm a consumer. Even though I'm doing a review, I'm giving my personal opinion, my honest opinion, my subjective take on it as a listener, as a consumer. Even though if I didn't purchase it, I still contemplate through the whole review process of, is this worth, X amount of dollars? Would I pay this for that? Going back to the cable discussion, that comes up a lot. $500 cable. Would I purchase a $500 cable? Probably not. Would I buy it if it was used or if it was on a significant discount? Maybe. So I do look at it as being a consumer, even if I didn't purchase it. I really try to put myself in those shoes. Would I be happy as a consumer paying that price tag? And then, when I do have an issue with customer service, I do think of it in that regard. Also, am I happy with this? Would I be happy with this? I had an issue with SPL back in the day, and the store that I purchased it from helped me out a lot. Was SPL necessarily that great in the process? No, they weren't. If I had worked with them directly, it would have been difficult to recommend them. Now, did it finally get resolved? Yes. Do I recommend SPL products? Sure, they're good products for the most part. I do worry about their durability, especially their electronics and power supplies a little bit, which is what I had a problem with. So I'd give some caution there. But I would say their customer service needs some work. It wasn't the greatest. It wasn't the most responsive and friendliest. So I do look at it in that regard as well. Let's see. Also, AJ said, I respect your morals. Someone actually got taken to court by Amazon for doing that. Yeah, I heard about that. I don't know who it was. I can't remember. But there have been several cases. I don't know if they all went to court or not, but Amazon is kind of picky in regards to that. I know that I don't know if they're still out there, but there used to be like some YouTube channels that would go and purchase like pallets of stuff from Amazon and from other online stores and just purchase it. You bid on like, hey, here's $500, and then you get this pallet of stuff, and it could have a bunch of junk, or it could have something good. And I remember watching those videos for a while, and some people found some really cool stuff. For $500, they made their money's worth back, and then others, you just got a bunch of junk. But as far as getting stuff in for review, I just don't feel proper about making money back on it, on stuff that I got for free, which is why I give it away or keep it. And I've sold a few of them, but then, it kind of came back in my mind, really? Should I be making money off of this? Is it morally correct to make money off of something that was given to me kind of gift wise? And so I've stopped doing that. And now most of the stuff, my wife reminds me pretty much every day, when are you getting rid of all this stuff? So it just sits. And Contrail, any chance you'll review the FIO FT13? Seems like an interesting headphone. Does seem like an interesting headphone. One hasn't been offered to me yet. I may reach out to FIO and ask if they have one for review. But normally I wait for people to approach me. I don't go begging. So we'll see if one is sent over. And I just spilled my drink. Perfect. Anyways, hang on. Hold up. Thankfully, there was a mat on the floor, so it all spilled on that. Anyways. Any wiggle worms in the audience, you understand why you don't have drinks next to you. Yeah. Anyways, all right. So FT13, yeah, if one is provided, I definitely would. I probably won't. I mean, if the money becomes available, I might purchase one. But I don't really know if I would or not. But As said before, money doesn't grow on trees. I wish it did. I wish it just kind of like dropped from the sky and you could just, grab it all day long. Does anybody want to come and clean up this drink I spilled? All right. All right. Contrail, spilling a drink is one of the most rage-inducing things ever, and being a twitchy person, it happens to me a lot. Same. I am very clumsy. One time I had about 5 different DACs and amps all over my desk, and I was testing them. And I had a cup of coffee, and I was drinking it, and I went to set it down, and the coffee cup missed the edge of the desk and just spilled, splattered all over the screens of the DACs and amps, made this massive, huge mess. And I had to spend about 2 hours just cleaning everything. I had to get out Q-tips, had to get out the alcohol wipes and all kinds of stuff, and just scrubbed them down. And for like the next 2 weeks, the desk smelled of espresso. It was just like, I mean, it smelled good, but it had this like sticky feel. Oh, it was awful. Yes, the story does hurt. Yeah. Thankfully, none of the gear was ruined, but it definitely took a lot of time to sit there and just clean. All the cables had, like goo all over them. It got sticky, and I just, oh, yeah. All right. So, are you interested in the Ifu Dawn X or Dawn 10? It'd be great to hear your take on its sonics. Do you like bone conduction IEMs? So bone conduction is interesting. I've heard a couple of them. I've heard the just regular plain one, just regular bone conduction, the weird ones that go over your ears. Those are interesting. I don't know if I would wear them all the time. Definitely they're an experience. As far as bone conduction being put into an IEM configuration, it's been hit or miss for me. Some of them have been really cool, and then others have just been kind of like, okay, sure, sounds all right. I can't remember one that was like totally, ugh, don't buy it. As far as getting the Ifu Dawn 10 or Dawn X in for review, again, just like I've said about the FT13 and a few others, money doesn't grow on trees. So more than likely, I'm probably not going to purchase one. If one is sent in for a review, gladly would review it. And I haven't had one asked about. So been there with PC components. That would be terrible too. Especially like if you have a PC with like a glass case, you'd be sitting there trying to clean that. Oh, that would be so annoying. I have spilled on keyboards so many cups of coffee and just drinks in general. It's been bad. I spilt milk one time in my car. I don't remember how it happened, and I don't remember why I had milk in my car, but it got into the carpet. And as much as you try to remove milk from a car carpet, it's impossible to get that smell out. And for like months, that car smelled like spoiled milk. You had to drive with the windows down. It was so bad. So I don't recommend spilling milk in your car. In fact, I don't recommend spilling milk anywhere, but in the car it was terrible. Or the the things we talk about on my live streams is hilarious. Spilled milk. Of course, I did spill a drink. Um, yeah, weather. There's so about 10 more minutes or so. Any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, recommendations of how to get milk out of the carpet of your car? Anything. Let's talk about it. Yeah, it was brutal. It was it was really bad. Um, I probably cleaned that carpet 20 times, and it just there was still that hint, and there's just nothing like spoiled milk. It just has that. Ugh. It just like puts a taste in your mouth. I don't know if you've ever drank like expired milk, but it puts that. Just smelling it just brings back that. By the way, I don't know if anybody's ever worked in this field, but how do they guess the expiration date for milk and get it so close? But you never know exactly. Like, let's say they say the 20th. On the 20th, you drink it, it's fine. 21st, it's probably fine. And then the next day, you're kind of like sniffing it, is it, and then, and then all of a sudden, it just becomes bad. How do they know? That's my question. I've never figured that one out. All right, let's see. Contra. I wish there was more audition spaces for personal hi-fi gear in the U.S. I saw one in Amsterdam where you could go get an excellent espresso, then walk right over to a listening booth to test insane gear. That would be really, really cool. Now, I'm gonna admit this. I had a pipe dream several years ago about starting like a little thing like that here in my town, but I don't think there would be enough interest. Plus, it would take a lot of money. But I wanted to have an area like a coffee shop because we have like 5 different coffee shops in my little town. Now, most of them I don't venture off to, but I think it would be cool to have like a coffee shop with maybe a small, some sort of small little cafe or something, somewhere where you could sit and enjoy, talk with people about it, maybe have different speakers demoing music. Maybe like one week you're doing, a Kef speaker, or next week you're doing, whatever, Wharfdales or something like that. And then you also have a listening area in which you can go and listen. You would have different rooms for specific gear, or you could just go and borrow something while you're drinking your coffee. You could listen to IEMs, you could listen to a headphone, and things like that. As long as you're a paying customer, you're free to roam around and just use whatever gear. Share it. You could bring in your own gear, that type of thing. I had that concept, but I just thought there wouldn't be enough interest. But it sounded cool to me. But it would probably take a lot of money to do. So I like that idea. And it's cool to have that in Amsterdam. That would be pretty cool. I don't really know if there's a lot of those here. I know there's none in my area. Um, but I think there was one in Seattle. If I remember a couple years ago, I remember hearing about one. Um, and I think there was one, a couple in California that are kind of like that, but I can't think of their names. But I've heard some people kind of talk in general about them on some different forums. So I do think they exist. They're just very rare. Um, Yeah, I would be a regular patron also, because there is a difference about sitting in your own space and sitting in with other people and listening, getting ideas and things like that. Um, you can bounce ideas off each other. You can just talk. You can share music. You could just enjoy the company, and spend a couple hours a day there. It would be really fun to run something like that. It'd be, you know, get to know people on a different level. Um, so Rodney says we have two here, Zeppelin and the Hangout, where you can have a drink, pastries, ice cream with waffles. Very fortunate for us here in Singapore. Now that's really cool. Now, is the Hangout the one with Corinne? Is that the one you're talking about? That'd be really cool. Um, Zeppelin I've heard of, but I didn't know that they did that. I thought they were just a store. I didn't realize that. Um, would love to go visit there sometime and do that. But that's something I'm not sure if it's more of a okay. So it is the Corinne place. That's really cool. That they do. I didn't know that he did the coffee and pastry thing. I thought that he was just a store where you could demo. I didn't realize he had the other part too. That's really really cool. Um, I don't know if that's a just a Western thing where they're not interested in that, or if it's more of a convenience thing, get your coffee and go. Because there are a lot of like coffee shops and cafes, but normally all that people are doing there are just plopping down, having like a group study group, on laptops and talking, um, or you're sitting by yourself reading the news, drinking your coffee, and then leaving. There's not a lot of like socializing among patrons. It's usually you're by yourself or you're with the particular people you came with, type of deal. Um, but I like that idea. It'd be I'm not I don't think I'm creative enough to be able to do that. Plus, in the area that I'm at, there it's not big enough to you know warrant that. Um, plus money. But I love that idea. Another thing that I've wanted to kind of do, but I don't think there would be enough interest in my area, would be doing an audio show. Um, having hosting something. You'd have to rent out a place because obviously my house isn't big enough. We live in a very small house and in a very tight area. But if we rent out a hall, rent out some sort of space, and then have bunch of us get together and share gear and products and things like that. That would be really cool to do. But again, I don't think there's enough um, people in this general area to be able to get you close by, because who would want to drive a day or 2 days or have to fly in to come to some localized event? That's cool, Rodney. That every weekend you gather at the Zeppelin for exchanges and get to know each other and to discuss gear. For a 79-year-old, it's refreshing to exchange with the younger hi-fi crowd. Absolutely, that would be really cool to because you've been around, and experienced so much more, to see the younger and how they perceive and how they look at things versus what you have experienced through the years, and be able to exchange stories and give insights from how things have improved or degraded and that's really cool. I'm glad you have that opportunity. That's the one thing that I really enjoyed when I go to audio shows is being able to talk with people, and be able to experience things. Because some of the will mention this is a speaker company or this is a DAC company or this is an amp company that I remember as a teenager, I got to hear this or I got to listen to this or this has been a favorite of mine and blah blah blah. You get to hear their experience and then you go and you listen to it and you're like, I can see why you even really enjoyed this one or why you thought such and such about it. It's really cool. Yeah, I totally agree with you, AJ, about the local show and where everybody brings stuff together. I've gone to a couple of those. None of them were really local to me. That I always had to drive several hours to get to them. But it is really neat to see where pretty much everybody brings stuff to the show, and shows off what they have. It's different experience than like Oxpona or Can Jams where vendors are bringing stuff to demo. It's more of, Jimmy Bob bringing his, hey, I have this headphone, I use this DAC and amp. What do you guys think of it? Or hey, I have this DAC and amp. I usually like this headphone, but can I try yours? And you try the other person's gear, things like that. You mix and match, and you can hear different things that you normally wouldn't get to experience, like at an audio show where it's our gear and our gear only. You can't take it and go to the other tables, kind of stuff. So it's a different experience. I really do like it. I think as much as I liked the big name shows and hearing all the new stuff and things like that, I enjoy those, but I really like the local ones because they seem more personable, and you learn from other people's experiences, and you get to see the joy on their face, and the enjoyment of their music, and it's just a different type of experience. I find it to be more refreshing. All right, so we have gone for 2 hours, and I'm enjoying the show, the live stream. I'm enjoying chatting with you all, but I do have to get going. It is 10 p.m. on the East, and so I enjoy everything. And if you have any ideas, thoughts, comments regarding anything that was discussed in this live stream when you watch it back, or if you're still in the chat, and comes to mind, drop it in the comments, and I'll definitely get to it. I do appreciate everybody showing up. Appreciate you watching the Septet review and the comparison to the Astral. And thank you for everybody showing up. We're going to do this again next week. And you all know how this ends. Check out the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, you can do that too. If you want to contact me, there's various ways that you can do that. And don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy. And one of these days, I'm not going to get my finger in the screen. So, goodbye. Hey, I did it.